Leo, thank you so much for bringing me to your favorite bar, The Barn, in
Yeah,
case anybody didn't notice, in Canterbury, the UK.
yep.
So tell us a bit about it because it's a barn.
Yeah, it is an old Kentish barn, and it's one of those things where the local farmer decided to diversify. And it's literally just down the road from me. I live outside Canterbury. It's a little village called Beatsbourne. And he's diversified and he's planted apple trees and grapevines. And so we produce his own cider and white wines. And yeah, the Kentish pip cider, very good. Well worth the sup if you
Yeah.
passing by. But it's such a great location. It's not. It's a pub, but it's not a pub. And we do in the summer. There's all barbecues going on through every weekend, and yeah, it's a great. It's just a great location. You can see. I mean, behind me is just a lovely space. They do weddings here as well and that sort of thing.
It's
But
a
we go out.
venue. It's an
Yeah,
actual living venue with history and
yes, yes. And when you walk to the place, because I've got my dogs, and I'll go for a walk. It's about 30-minute walk to there with the dogs in the just outside the barn or in the barn. Have a lunchtime snack or a glass of cider or a glass of wine. It's lovely. It's great. It's what Kent's about.
you said there, which I'm not that bright, so I don't know all these things, but wine in
Yes.
England.
Yeah. Kent now. We are in Kent. I'm probably surrounded by about 12 vineyards. So even champagne, that was not champagne, it's sparkling white wine. He's actually taken the French champagne for a ride. We're actually producing some very, very good white wine. And yeah,
Wow. I
it's quite
guess,
amazing.
yeah, I guess again, another small indication of how the climate is changing.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
and, I'm thinking that that means that you get more sunlight than you ever did before, or something of that ilk.
Bit warmer, a bit drier.
Yeah,
Yes, and because we're on the Kent Downs, there's a lot of chalk, so it's suitable for the vines, etc. And so yeah, we it's just a growing industry in Kent. The more you look at it, is in other parts of the country they're putting solar panels in. Down in Kent, we're just putting grapevines in.
but it's fantastic. How would ever have known that or learned that unless we were in a bar virtually with
Yeah.
you in Kent? So we're sitting there. There's a bar up there behind you, more so.
Yes, there is. Yes.
We're sitting there, and there's a big electrical storm, and it wipes out absolutely everything on your phone except three apps. What are the three that you absolutely are hoping are still on
Well, I suppose this is going to be a strange one because most people would say they'd be fed up with it. Is YouTube? I would definitely keep YouTube. The reason for it is not for the content that most people will look at it. It's the educational side of it because I actually took up wood turning a couple of years back, and
Fantastic.
I taught myself from all the videos that they produce on YouTube. So I can make bowls and goblets and all sorts of things, salt and pepper pots, Christmas trees, snowmen, wooden baubles for the Christmas tree and that sort of thing. And I learned it all off of YouTube. And so, as an educational thing, I wouldn't be without it. It's absolutely a fantastic thing. And actually, and then the hobby of turning wood and that
Yeah,
it will crush. And we're all under a lot of stress with all the things that the
yeah.
world keeps throwing at us. Just to go outside into my workshop, put a bit of wood on there, and just the smell of it, the, yeah, it's just
The
a
whole
great
thing.
relaxation. Mm.
Well, the reason that I'm smiling, Leo, is actually because didn't I go and buy myself at Christmas a CNC engraver?
All
For,
right.
right. So as you can see, I'm not really at the races yet. I've been, some of my work is not quite up to standard yet.
Yeah, but
But but what I'm finding, it's a little machine here in the corner. And what I'm finding is I'm not very creative, but the machine perfects my imperfections.
Yeah.
And I must say, I didn't think I'd enjoy it so much, maybe too much, but it's a great way of, well, if people can stand for 9 hours looking at a fishing rod in a stream,
Yeah.
I can watch this thing carving something and get great pleasure out of it. I guess that's what you're saying also.
Yes, you just get the pleasure of actually creating something that's just for, not necessarily for a reason, it's just because you want to do it. It's your own time. And, you know, so much of your own time is shared with other people putting demands on you.
Yeah,
Whereas when you're doing that little bit of a hobby or something, and something with wood, nature, etc., it's good. It's good. And you then can
100%.
go and just say, I've made that.
100%. And everyone in my family is getting off center coffee coasters for every present for the next 20 years.
Yes. Well, all my friends and family are getting wooden bowls
Wooden
of
bowls.
different.
Well,
Yes.
you can make them and I'll brand them on the back for you. And I
Yeah.
might even get it center the next time. So what's the second one? What's the second app?
I suppose this comes back to why I like the barn. I think it's got to be the app Open Table, the
Yeah.
restaurant finding app, because I love my food, which is why I love the barn here in Kent. But I love good restaurants and I love going finding them. So whenever I'm out and about, go to the Open Table, you know, just find a restaurant in Dublin. When I was over in Dublin recently, I found Rowley's, just booked the table at Rowley's, and it's just, yeah, great restaurant. And you find restaurants you don't even know are there. So that has got to be
Isn't
one of
that
my.
the truth? That
Mm,
is the key thing with good apps. It's a bit like I drive and you drive all the time around places. And it's not that you find it, you walk it a little bit on foot,
no,
you see and spot stuff. You say, God, that's interesting. Or, gee, the roads are very bad. Whereas those good apps, they actually see around corners for you.
yeah, exactly that. And you in some of these places, some of the restaurants you can find on there, you go, well, that's only 3 miles up the road from me, and I didn't even know it was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just gives you that insight of what to expect
Yeah.
and just to go and try a new restaurant. Because I mean, everybody loves to just go out for a meal, and they always tend to go to the same place because they love it. But
Yeah.
if you just actually be brave, go somewhere else. And
No,
that's
and I know we're not talking about a huge amount about work at the moment, but there's a great experience, a new tool that's been given to you um, by infrastructure. Okay, we call it the cloud, but it's the stuff you're building and supporting. And it's one of the challenges we have is because 99% of the people who use OpenTable probably don't connect it with what you're building
no,
in your professional world.
no, exactly that. Yeah. And yeah, it's just that brilliant app. It's like the YouTube again. That again is in our industries, and that it's all going to be stored somewhere. But these apps are just there, and you don't have to think about what they're doing or you know what's behind it. They're just there to help you to learn something, to make how to make a bowl, and then how to have a meal, and that's put the meal in the bowl.
You know, that's particularly why I also tracked a few guys in YouTube. What I liked about the YouTube is you can find a tutor that you like,
Yes.
teach you in the tone you like, the pace you like, um, and even is, you know, I like people making mistakes. I think that that's great because then they
Yeah.
say, well, even I make mistakes and I've been doing this for 20 years. And then it doesn't make me so bad when I come out of my little area with cuts all over my fingers from touching. Anyway, so we're on the we're on the third app.
Yeah. The third app. Now this is very perfect timing, really, because it all kicks off on Saturday, and it's the Six Nations app.
Okay.
Yeah, because whilst I'm not a great TV watcher, but I love to keep up in rugby. I've played rugby for many years, and the Six Nations for me is just one of the go-to competitions. And that Six Nation app just keeps me up to date on who's done what, where they are on the tables, etc. And that's the one for me at the moment. If you'd have asked me perhaps in 6 months' time, it might be the World Cup app, but normally something to do with rugby with that third app.
Isn't it funny about, and maybe it's an age thing, Leo, I'll call it out there, but there was always, we saw so little live sport back in the day, maybe the FA Cup final
Yeah,
and all the Six Nation matches. It was that thing. I mean, okay, for younger listeners, we also got to watch all of the snooker, all 64 days of it. We don't mind not looking at that, but that was one of the great things about those cold winter evenings or Saturdays. And I think they were always on at 3 o'clock and stuff. It's
That's
the
right.
memories of the games and the big, heavy leather balls and stuff back in the day. It's to have now where you've got every stat of every player since he had his breakfast there in front of him.
Sitting in your hand. Yeah.
It adds to the experience, though.
Yes, and I've got to say, I haven't played for many a year now. I've gone, but the game now, I think, in rugby is far more brutal than it was all those years ago. Okay, there was a lot of blood and guts spilt on the pitch in the non-professional days of the rugby, but now the athletes that are out there, because I mean, so some of the like the old England hookers, Brian, I can't remember his name, but he was a solicitor part time.
Brian Moore.
Brian Moore, that's it. Yes,
Yeah.
So Brian Moore. I mean, he was a lawyer in court, and then going to play international rugby at the weekends. I mean, how crazy is that? And that's only in the 80s. So yeah, move on 40 years, and it's a different game.
It's a business. Yeah. It's a business. And one just hopes that genuinely, unlike maybe even American football for a while, that the health of the sports player, the product, effectively, is front and center of everything. Because you're right, it's a different sport. So
different sport.
The barn door whacks open, and there's a boy or girl there who is just ginging to have a pint with someone. Who would you love it to be that says, "I'm going to have a pint with you, Leo"?
She's going to be a strange one, because I'm not a great lover of newscasting, of the news and the media, because it always seems so shallow and they'd never give you the full story. But the one person I would love to sit down with and have a good pint with, she might only want a sherry or a glass of wine, but actually she'd probably drink a pint as well, is Kate Adie, the BBC reporter from...
Who's always in the middle of all the conflicts.
Absolutely. It started with the when she started her career with the Iranian embassy, the bombing in the Iranian embassy in London. And then from that point forward, whenever you heard a BBC report in any disaster anywhere, Tiananmen Square, it's Kate Adie's there. I mean, she's been shot at because she's got, she's had one hell of an experience. And to find out what she's learned about political experiences in those different countries and those different things would be absolutely fascinating to me. I really would love to just sit down. I mean, I think she must be in her mid-70s, probably pushing on into her 80s now. But the experience that she's got, and
it's so true, because she was always there front and center, and we all watch BBC, so therefore you always tuned into her. And it was the voice. It's a little bit like David Attenborough.
That's right.
When you hear the voice, you go, is it trust? Are there deep ridges in our brains that over time, when we listen to the same person talking about stuff that we understand and believe, you lean more towards the voice because you trust it? I guess there is some of that.
Yes, I think there is the trust in there, and that how she genuinely is concerned about what's going on. She's got that depth of character that's not just skimming over it and selling the media just to get their click rate up or everything like that. She actually had a deep passion and understanding about being a journalist and what that actually means out in foreign countries, and putting herself at risk to report back these. I mean, she's been all over every disaster zone in the last probably 40 years. Kate Adie's left her footprint.
Yeah, extraordinary woman. I think I read that she released an autobiography or something. And now that you've brought her back up, I'm going to read it, because I'd say it was every single piece of socio-political upheaval and change over the last 30 to 40 years, she has her fingerprints on.
And she's probably been there and seen both sides of the story, where normally when it gets reported and then watered down and edited out, you only get the editor's version of the news stories that we see in the UK or in Ireland. But there's always the other side of it, and I think she has seen both sides of it, and actually be able to give you the lowdown on the perspective that she probably wouldn't be allowed to report.
Just about to bring that up with you, and I think it's interesting for listeners as well, is that we don't seem to have time anymore to take perspectives on board.
No,
and be okay to change our mind.
Yes.
To be okay to see both sides. Whether it's the world we live in or some of the infrastructure we're building is supporting, we're at a very interesting time when
everything's so instant. Everything is.
Agree, and we seem to want to be entrenched early.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, and entrenched early, very instant, and we want to protect our children from a lot of this, so they don't get the
broader
picture. And I think because there was two people that I would like to have invited into the barn, Kate Adie, but the other one that I was sort of like toying with is a guy called Simon Sinek. He's an author, a motivator. He does it a lot in business and that, and he's written several books about how to get the best out of people. And he also done one about what they call the snowflake generation, and how they've become the snowflake generation, and how we as employers should actually try to understand them all. And it's absolutely fascinating. Yeah. Because we have insulated them and given them everything instantly, so that everything instant on the phone, they get the trainers instantly, and then suddenly they're put in the world of work and they've got to stand on their own 2 feet. And we've sheltered them for the last 18 years or 19 years of their life. And they've got to go, well, hang on, someone's got to do this for me. Help. Yeah. And that's what they're saying. They're not snowflakes. They just need help because they've not been given that harder youth, if you like.
Well, there's so many great sayings that come to mind when you're talking there, like the old story of it takes a village to raise a child. And there was a reason why that was a great saying, is because you met every type. Including the guy who had lots and the guy who had nothing. You had to carry stuff, But I think one of the things that we have to start, pendulums always swing too far to each side, depending on sort of the mood at the moment. And I think it's gone too far till we have to be entrenched. Every generation that you ever look at thought they invented music.
Yeah, yes.
And yet there's only 12 notes, right?
Yeah. It's like every decade, the decade that people were born in, that was the best music of for that decade, whether it be 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Exactly. Not only was this the best, there was no music before it.
Yeah.
The cancel culture kicked in. Leo, it's been fun. We could go on all day. We've meandered around, but we've come back to what's most important about everything, which is just talking about experiences and people.
Yes.
And, we wear different clothes and fashion. I'm glad to see you and I have the most popular hairstyle of the day. It was always popular, by the way. Always. Always, absolutely. It was just when I put it with my Doc Martens and my rolled up jeans, people used to run across the street. But that's a different discussion for a different show. Thank you so much, Leo. It's been great.
It's a pleasure, Gary. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, then.